Welcome to Tech in the Right Direction, the podcast. Let's take tech in the right direction to drive social change and close the employment, pay, and culture gap for women in technology. This podcast is focused on helping turn ideas into action and create opportunities for women to advance in the dynamic technology industry. I hope this podcast will inspire and motivate you to encourage more women and girls to seek or grow a career as a woman in technology. Stories about the journey of amazing women in the tech field starts right now.
This week in our Women in Tech segment, I will be talking with Jane Wiseman. Jane is an Innovations in American Government Fellow at the Ash Center for Democratic Governance and Innovation. She leads the Institute for Excellence in Government, a nonprofit consulting firm dedicated to improving government performance. She has served as an appointed official in government and as a financial advisor and consultant to government. She supports an effort to create a national network of urban chief data officers to accelerate the use of analytics in the local government. She has advised the U.S. cities funded by Bloomberg Philanthropies in their Mayor's Challenge competition. She has written on customer-centric government, data-driven decision-making in government, pretrial justice, and 311 for a variety of audiences. Her prior consulting work has included organizational strategy, performance management, and e-government strategy work for Accenture and Price Waterhouse. Selected clients include the National Governors Association, the United States Department of Veterans Affairs, the National Criminal Justice Association, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the United States Postal Service, the State of Michigan, the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, and the United States Department of Commerce. Welcome to the show, Jane. I'm so excited to have you on our show.
And I'm excited to be here. Thanks for including me.
You're welcome. So let's get started. Can you share with us a little bit about your career path in technology? You have such an impressive background and so much great experience. I'd love for the listeners to kind of go through that journey with you a little bit.
Sure. I guess, in thinking about career path in technology, I can't say that there's any magic other than two things. One is be open to opportunity, and the other is work hard, and you'll create opportunity. So my specialty now is really in how data and technology can make government better, and that's where I spend my time on research and writing and consulting and training. But I wouldn't have guessed at the start of my career that this is where I'd land, and it's been a series of fortuitous turns that have been, coming back to being open to opportunity and working hard enough to generate goodwill that has created more opportunities. So my very first job out of college was an example of being open to ideas. I was at a Christmas party and family friends were all gathered to celebrate the holidays. And as a college senior without a job, I didn't really want to answer the question, but one of my father's friends asked, what are you going to do after graduation? And I sort of said, I don't know. And he said, this was back in the 80s before Wall Street was such a, it was at the time a much more uncomplicated view that we all had of Wall Street. And he said, if I were your age, I'd go to one of those Wall Street investment banks and have them pay me lots of money while they trained me. And I thought, it had never occurred to me until this friend of my dad's recommended it, and I did. And it turns out it was a great way to get basic quantitative training for 2 years while meeting interesting people, having fun, and getting a good paycheck. So then I went to graduate school for government, which was something I'd always wanted to do. And coming out of that, again, I was at a loss for getting a job. Coming out, graduating with a master's degree from Harvard, I thought it would be easier to get a job, but I graduated into a recession. And again, I was asking for help, and someone at the Kennedy School Career Office said, why don't you talk to these people? And it got me started in management consulting. And so it was just being open to ideas from others that took me to a path of where I feel like every job since then has used the same skills, which is quantitative analysis and logical storytelling to create compelling narratives that move government into a positive direction.
I love that. Wow. Being open to ideas and being open to trying new things is really such an important part of any career path, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and when you start down a path, you may realize how much you love it, like basically what you did. So did you always know that analytics and this storytelling was like a passion of yours? What was that spark? How did you find out that this is what I really love?
So two things. One is I want to go back to what you said about being open.
Mm-hmm.
When I took that first job in management consulting, I took it out of desperation after looking for work for 6 months and not being able to find anything, and I didn't think I'd like it. So I think another bit of advice that I like to give people is you might surprise yourself with what you like. I thought consulting, just borrow people's watch to tell them what time it is and, make recommendations that might sit on a shelf. And I didn't think I'd like it. And it turns out, to answer your question, I realized once I tried it that I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
And working hard enough, I got to be reasonably good at it. So, I think that was for me a good lesson in letting the path unfold in a surprisingly positive way.
That is great. So, as a woman in technology, do you see that women have the same opportunities as men in this industry?
Well, I think that it's really hard to find industries where women get paid more than men and have more opportunity and have more fun and have more confidence and more everything. But, there's been a lot of progress made in the decades that I've been in the workforce. My first job out of college, the recruiters worked really hard to get to 50-50, and I was in the first analyst class at what was then called First Boston, now Credit Suisse. I was the very first analyst class that was 50-50 male-female, and that was a big deal. I have mostly, though, worked in environments that are predominantly male.
Mm-hmm.
Strategy consulting, investment banking, even, in government, I've done a lot of work in the law enforcement area, which is a male-dominated area. And in a way, I feel like that's given me opportunity, because sometimes when we're small in number, we have to be stronger. And sometimes there are frankly benefits of being one of the few women that, I've had sometimes, I think, opportunities that I wouldn't have had if I were just another one of the many, many men in the room.
I agree. I think, having self-confidence, having the skill, and then being open to ideas and working hard, as you said, really create those opportunities for women. And sometimes we're our own worst enemy, where we are in our head saying, you can't do it, you're not qualified, whatever those thoughts might be. So creating those opportunities for ourselves is also critical. Do you feel that way as well?
Oh, absolutely. What's that? I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt said something like, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right.
Mm-hmm. Very
So I
true.
think it's important for us to really have the ability to believe in ourselves. And, I will say I'm on the policy and strategy side of technology. I'm not actually in the kind of hardcore building software, building algorithms, building technology. I'm not on the engineering side of technology, and I can't speak to what it's like to be a woman in that part of the industry, and I imagine it's an awful lot harder.
Yeah.
So I want to not be glib, and I want to be respectful of, the commentaries that I read of women who have a difficult time in other parts of the industry. I want to honor that and really empathize. And that hasn't been my path.
But I think it's really great for our listeners and women, especially listening to this show, that they realize there's so much more to technology careers than being just a coder. Because a lot of times, young girls are always thinking if they're going to be in technology, they have to be coding. And there's so many other careers within technology that are just so fascinating and pretty lucrative in most cases that I think to see that there are other positions that you can excel in outside of the coding is very beneficial.
Did you know that there is an increase in the number of women leaving the tech industry? As a woman-owned business, Directions Training has made it our mission and passion to change this statistic. That's why Jennifer created this podcast. We showcase insight from everyday women for everyday women in the tech industry. Do you know other people that would benefit from tuning in? Share the link and help us drive the advancement of women in the tech industry. Do you have a journey or know of someone that our listeners would benefit from hearing about? Reach out to us at directionstraining.com/podcast. Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and wherever you find your podcasts. Now, back to the show.
I certainly think it'd be great if there were more women in the side of the industry that I'm in, which is more policy, research, consulting, training. So let's bring women in all aspects.
Yes, and that's our goal. One of the things that I'm very passionate about is girls in STEM education. And so we're always doing different programs and field trips to get girls, usually ages 8 to 13, interested in actually understanding and being aware of what the STEM fields are, and that's really helping. Hopefully, it changes our pipeline so that our future numbers are not declining like they are now of women in technology. So, working very hard to build that pipeline, and so I think all of us need to kind of think through that and bring women more into the fields that we are in, so we're lifting each other up.
I mean, one place where I've seen women really in strong numbers is in city data analytics. There's been a bit of turnover recently, but at one point, of the half dozen leading city data analytics leaders, you had women in charge in Pittsburgh, Boston, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and now also in New Orleans. And recently named in New York City. So at the city level, a lot of the data leaders are women.
That's great. That's great to hear. Now, as a woman yourself in technology, what are some of the challenges you've faced, and what did you do to overcome them?
Well, I think a challenge that everyone faces, male or female, is just staying current. And it's hard to do because the volume and velocity of information coming at us nowadays is so much, it's just a much higher volume than even 5, 10 years ago. And I think one of the best ways to stay current is to have a network and have people to share ideas and information with.
Yeah, it is very difficult to stay current, and continuous learning is on all our agendas every day. But to keep up with all those changes is just really, really difficult. So yes, I can see why that's a challenge. And, just by reading and learning and talking to people and staying in the industry, I think those are all ways to stay relevant and stay current. You talk about data, and I think about how much data there is today in our world, and that analytics, how critical it is. And finally, companies are now taking that information and making really good, educated decisions. Everything from retail to obviously government, taking that data, analyzing it, and coming up with some really strong, relevant decisions. Tell me a little bit about that. What are you seeing with all this data out there? Is the government and other entities using it to streamline processes? What are some of the things they're using the data for?
Well, the way I see value in data is really threefold. First is governments finding ways to get a financial return on investment. Second, we're getting process efficiency improvements. And third, there are places where data and transparency and technology are actually improving public faith in government. And that's very hard to measure, but very important because we're at all-time lows of trust and confidence in our government.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So in terms of the financial return on investment, there are, there have been 2 separate billion-plus dollar takedowns of fraud at the U.S. Health and Human Services Inspector General's office. The chief data officer there is, by the way, female, Carol Brismalkowitz.
Mm-hmm.
She's doing a great job, and she gets a $5 return for every dollar of cost for her agency by taking out Medicare and Medicaid fraud. So I think that's a great example of financial return
mm-hmm.
that government is finding. There are other examples, in finding tax fraud, finding fraud in business licenses. So financial fraud, financial return on investment is one thing that is a little bit easier to quantify, but efficiency gains,
mm-hmm.
there are many places where we're seeing, 20%, sometimes 100% improvement in the efficiency of an operation through application of data analytics. Probably the easiest example there is a couple years ago, the city of Chicago took on restaurant inspections and wanted to develop a predictive analytics algorithm to prioritize and get to the places that were most dangerous first.
Mm-hmm.
So they now get there 7 days earlier to the places with critical violations of sanitation code that could make you sick. And that's been quantified as a 20% improvement in their productivity. And then the third way we can measure the value of data and analytics in government is by increasing trust and confidence in the government. And City of Kansas City, Missouri, was able to do that by aggressively pushing out data on their snowplow efforts. They didn't change what they did, they just improved the transparency, visibility, and public awareness of what they were doing. And they were able to make a major increase in citizen satisfaction with how their city was handling snow removal.
That is amazing. Thank you for those great examples. I think it just shows you the power of data and how it can help in multiple ways. So that's really, really great. So, as a woman in technology, tell me how, if you think that you have any advantages or what things that women bring to the table that give us a better understanding of technology or teams or leadership. You mentioned, many of the analytics analysts that are in all the different cities are women, which is kind of neat to see. So what skills do they bring to the table that's unique for a woman?
So instead of giving you my answer, I'm going to quote a Boston area CEO of a firm who talked about the value of a diverse board. So when he started bringing more women onto his board of directors, they were able to deliver greater returns on shareholder value. So he said, why did profits go up at my company when we added women to the board of directors? He said, it's because men tend to come to the table with declarations and women come with questions. So the way I connect that back to what I see in government is that I always say one of the most important qualities is curiosity, right? There are lots of people with technical capability, but you need to have technical capability as well as the curiosity and the creativity to pursue the why not kind of questions. If we just keep doing everything the way we've always done it in the past, we're never going to make improvement. Making improvement and innovating is about asking, why do we do it this way? Could we do it differently? And having the confidence to question the status quo. And I think that's something that women can cultivate and that we should, frankly, try to encourage. So I'll tell you, there's so much possibility out there if we can really tap into this innovation and curiosity. In government, McKinsey estimates there is $1 trillion of value that can be captured through data and analytics deployed more broadly in government. And Deloitte estimates that 1.2 billion hours of work can be saved by the federal government. So, $1 trillion, 1.2 billion hours, whether it's that or whether it's in our own organizations finding our own 20% improvement in efficiency of operations, whatever it is that we do, we have to just be tying back to our core mission. What are we trying to achieve? And then asking the question, how can we do it better?
Yeah, I love that. Curiosity is so great. Asking questions, collaborating, bringing creativity, and sparking innovation is definitely some of our strengths, and we just need to capitalize on that more and more so that we can have more women at the table, in the boardrooms, and in the technology, industry. So great points of really looking at how we do things differently and what advantages that has in an organization. So if you had to give some advice to a woman starting in the technology field today, what would you say?
So I'm going to quote an old boss of mine who passed away last year, unfortunately, Ann Hopkins, who was a partner at Accenture. At Pricewaterhouse, wrong job. So Ann Hopkins said to me, there are 5 things you have to do on every project. Teach something, learn something, deliver a high quality product that is perceived as a high quality product, make money, and have fun. And I think that's good advice. Isn't that great?
I love that. I'm going to have to steal that from you. That is great.
Yeah, she was a really great boss, and she cared so deeply about her people. And it was so sad that she passed away last year. But her advice lives on, and I'm hoping through your podcast, even more people can benefit from her wonderful wisdom.
Absolutely. Could you
And I mean,
repeat
I think
those
that's another
again?
thing is, so it's, okay, teach something, learn something, deliver a high quality product that is perceived as a high quality product, make money, and have fun.
Love it.
Yeah.
So we will definitely, that is something I would like to carry on myself. And through this podcast, hopefully we continue, remembering Ann Hopkins so that we learn from that. I think that's great advice.
Right. I mean, back to the point about having courage and confidence, Ann Hopkins made partner at Price Waterhouse because the Supreme Court said so. She was discriminated against, and she filed a lawsuit, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court. So that's a woman who had to have confidence to keep going against such great odds.
Really, and because of her, we have more opportunities.
Yes, so we have many, many reasons to be thankful to Ann.
Yes,
and I'm so grateful to have had the chance to work for her.
That's awesome. So in closing, what would be 3 words that your friends would use to describe you?
Oh gosh. I think my friends would say, number 1, good cook. That's 2 words though, right? So we'll say chef. Okay, number 1, they say chef. Number 2, they would probably say athlete. And number 3, they would probably say loyal.
That's great.
You were probably looking for technology words, but
no. 3 words that would describe you can be anything, and that really truly shows your authentic self. So that's awesome. Your career, your background, your education has been just so impressive. And I thank you so much for taking this time to be on our show so that our listeners can learn more about you and learn from you. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This has been so much fun, just getting to think, often we kind of get stuck in what's today's deadline instead of thinking about important questions like the ones you've raised. So thank you. This was really fun.
You're welcome. I'd love to have you on a show in the future.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Thanks again, Jane. Bye-bye.
All right. Take good care. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Tech in the Right Direction. Please take a minute to subscribe or follow so that you never miss an episode. Also, don't forget to like, share, and comment. Thank you. See you next week.
From IT skill enhancements to end-user adoption training, Directions Training is your resource to help optimize the effectiveness of your technology investments. Over 500,000 students have taken advantage of our wide selection of technology and business training solutions covering the most popular applications today, such as Microsoft 365, Azure, Windows 10, and more. As a podcast listener, we invite you to take advantage of an exclusive offer. Receive 30 days of free access to our Microsoft official curriculum on-demand courses for IT professionals or end users. Visit us at www.directionstraining.com/podcast to claim this offer today. Hurry, this offer is only available for a limited time. Success is a journey. Ask for directions.